There's a realtor on here bashing buyer's agents, which I find completely hypocritical since I know for a fact that he also is sometimes a buyer's agent. So let's get into it. So in this video, he said his biggest pet peeve is when a buyer's agent comes to him and says, I have a contract with the buyer for 3%. I'm wondering if your seller will cooperate with paying that fee. And he flat out goes, my seller doesn't have to cooperate with shit. Ever since the National Association of Realtors had this big lawsuit, it sort of muddied the waters on how commission is asked for. It used to be that when we listed a property, the seller did pay the commission from their net proceeds because the buyer is financing the purchase. The net is based off of the purchase price. And it used to be that, like, if the seller agreed to 5%, that 2.5% was to the listing agent and 2.5% was to the buyer's agent. Now we've changed that. Now we've said 2.5% to the listing agent, and the buyer's agent has to ask for their fee to be covered. You can do it in a couple ways. You can ask for the seller to cover it. You can ask for the buyer to cover it and have the seller give a closing cost credit, or the buyer has to cover it out of their pocket on top of their closing costs, on top of their down payment, which if you're doing that, then that means the buyer's going to want to pay less for the house because now they have to finance more on the purchase. Here's the problem we're having right now, and it's a catch-22 because a buyer's agent cannot show property at all, not one property, without a buyer-broker agreement. That buyer-broker agreement has to outline what the commission will be. It's essentially what we are going to ask the seller to pay. We have to disclose that to the buyer. And we really don't know what the seller's willing to pay because we haven't even shown them any property yet and we haven't even written an offer. We put a number in and we kind of hope for the best. But most agents are willing to adjust that down. Like if the seller's only willing to pay 2%, that's typically what we will adjust to, or we have to negotiate it. Like that's the whole point. The buyer's agent is supposed to negotiate that fee. You want my client's excellent offer? This is what you're going to have to pay me. If you don't want to pay me, I don't work for free, and that buyer does not want to be unrepresented. So we'll just move on to another property because there's plenty others on the list. So to sit there and bash buyer's agents for asking for their fee and thinking that that's just some sort of like entitled crazy thing and that you've come up with some genius idea that sellers shouldn't have to pay it. Well, guess what? You also act as a buyer's agent. And I'm pretty sure that you are not asking your buyers to cover your fee. I'm pretty sure when you wrote those offers, you asked the seller to pay your fee. So I guess my pet peeve is realtors who are hypocritical and stroke their own ego online. That's my pet peeve.